Good morning once again. It's the 13th of March. We enter day number 4 of this week, and pretty much day number 4, and it is the 4th episode of Kusile Breakfast Show. It is going to be a very informative program this morning. A lot of developments happening around the country as well as closer to Eswatini, but with very many implications to our own economy, these developments happening outside of our country. But before we dwell into what is coming up on the show, it is wise that I greet you and we take a moment to appreciate Lomtsala Wetinsuku Losemazulwini for having us by his side every day. Si solo sing laba phephile sihamba emigwaqweni kuleli viki nje sitibonile timvula siyabonga ke nalo ukuthi lukhona lihlangothi leli sibukela dona tindzaba temgwaqo kutsenini uphephe kangakanani imigwaqo yethu siseta uyisebenzisa ekseni kanjalo ke nalomhla ekseni Ntombenhle Fakutse utawuphindze asiphe leyo traffic update leyo. It did drizzle overnight. We want to know if we should expect some slippery slopes along our roads as we take to work this morning. If not, we will get that confirmation again that we should go ahead and drive per usual. Outside of that, we do have our news bulletin, and outside of our news bulletin, by the way, our news bulletin in our local language as well as the English language. And outside of that, we will do have some of the leading headlines across our major leading newspapers this morning. But the business of the day, this is our agenda. What was happening in South Africa yesterday after many delays with their budget speech? Minister Gondongwana finally delivered it. I believe he started around 2 p.m. Central African time, and that was when we were hosting our very own business show here. So we were really trying to follow up closely. But today, we do have the comprehensive speech by Minister Gondongwana, but we did take a few takeaways, those with which we feel like will have a few implications on our economy as the Kingdom of Eswatini. A proposed 0.5% VAT hike. That is the topic of conversation. It has Eswatini watching really closely, and it's more than just a tax adjustment. You know, it's a move that could drive up consumer prices, impact trade, as well as, you know, even test the stability of Africa's new coalition government. We want to really understand that it's a move that could drive up the consumer prices, impact trade, and trade is, you know, central to what our Ministry of Commerce, Industry and Trade wants to do to, you know, help our economy to really transform. Economist Analyst Bia will join me to break down what this could mean for our economy and whether this proposal stands a chance of passing, really. And then we want to shift gears at 7:30 and focus on World Consumer Rights Day. It is a global movement that is ensuring fairness and accountability in the marketplace. And this year's theme, a just transition to sustainable lifestyles, challenges us to rethink the way that we consume, not just for our financial well-being, but for the future of business as well as the environment, really. Eswatini's consumers are aware of their rights. That is me and you seated there at home. And are businesses doing enough to protect them? That is another question that we want to look into this morning. I will be joined by two individuals. Andile Nzabanzaba, he is the Research and Communications Officer at the Ombudsman of Financial Services, OFS Eswatini, as well as Mangoba Mabuza. He's the Advocacy and Communications Manager at the Eswatini Competition Commission. It's a conversation-packed show today. You do not want to miss it, so stay with us. But before we go any further, let's go through some of the leading headlines this morning. Kicking things off with the Times of Eswatini. These are the leading stories. House of horror. 2 kids abused, 1 dies. Children found in state of extreme neglect. Brutality inside flat. They are rushed to hospital after rescue by community, and a woman has been arrested. Really paining me that most of these horrifying stories are coming from my hometown in Hlangano, where these two children on that photograph, aged 3 and 4, were rescued from a house where they had been subjected to horrific abuse. Now, this occurred after Pumelele residents forcibly entered the house and assisted in placing the children into a police vehicle. Now, the children, who had been placed in the care of a local woman by a pastor, were found in a state of extreme neglect, starvation, and brutality. One of them with a gaping wound on the head, the one that is circled there on the far right, that is the gaping wound on their head, and they later succumbed to injuries. Very, very horrifying. On another one, what SA's 0.5% VAT hike means for Eswatini. We are drilling into that conversation at 6:30 with economist Sanele Sibia. And another story, murder, suicide. Cops guard corpses all night due to poor lighting. And phase 2 of the Riposa joins forces with PSUs. Let's look at the sports headlines. Taxpayers bleed as 124 million emalangeni is spent on Somhlolo renovations. Construction of a 6.15 billion emalangeni world-class venue begins next year. On another story, Barks leading top earners, that is the Moneni Pirates, who are undoubtedly flying high as the most successful team in this season's domestic campaign. And South Africa's Patrice Motsepe has been re-elected. Moving over to the Eswatini Observer this morning. I beg your pardon, the Eswatini Daily News. We do not have the Eswatini Observer this morning. From the EDN, 32.61 billion emalangeni budget gets the nod, and Cabinet commits to deliver. The House of Assembly has passed the 32.61 billion emalangeni budget for 2025-2026 financial year in what Minister of Finance Neil Reichenbach termed a huge relief, and further committed that Cabinet would do its best in applying it. Eswatini emphasizes commitment to women's empowerment at the United Nations Conference. The Deputy Prime Minister Kusile, representing the Kingdom of Eswatini there at this year's at this year's United Nations Conference, of course, premising her submission for the commitment to women's empowerment, alluding to some of the recent developments we've been seeing in Eswatini, including His Majesty the King's pronouncement on the Lutsango Day. Government set aside 10 million emalangeni for TLC. New funding model is on the cards. The back end of this publication, the sports headlines: EFA congratulates re-elected Patrice Motsepe. The EFA has paid tribute to CAF President Dr. Patrice after he retained his position unopposed during the elective annual General Assembly on Wednesday. On another one, call up unbelievable and I am grateful. Sentiments of a local player who has been called up for the representation in the Sihlangu Semnigati squad. Why Saleng is not in Pirates coach Riviero's thoughts is another leading headline. And those are our leading headlines on the major newspapers this morning. We go for a net break. We return with our stories in Siswati.
Eswatini TV has signed a code of conduct that is enforced by the Eswatini Communications Commission. We are committed to reporting news that is accurate, comment that is fair, and programming that does not amount to hate speech or the description of gratuitous violence or explicit sex. For any complaints of our programming, please contact us on 2411-9600 or email info@eswatinitv.co.za. You can also contact the Eswatini Communications Commission on 2406-7000 or write a letter to ECCOM on PO Box 7811 Mbabane. Email address is info@ecom.org.sz.
Mfinze sinamukele ehlelweni Kusile Breakfast Show lomhla ekseni nathi tindzaba tesiswati indvuna elitiko letekwatisa imphunga Savana Mazia itsi letikhatsi tibita kutsi live libukete imitsetfo leyo ke letawukwenta kutsi tekuchumana tibe melula sicijiswe ke nesive ngetindlela letinsha tekuchumana netebuchwephesha. Indvuna beyikhuluma ngesikhatsi ivula umhlangano wekudzingidza tingoni letahlukene tekuchumana i-National Communications Forum ezulwini.
Libandla lengamele tekuchumana yeSwatini Communications Commission lihlanganise tinhlango setahlukene lapha eveni kudzingidza tindzaba tekuchumana nekutsi live lingagcinisa ngakuphi kuhambisana netikhatsi talomuhla tekuchumana netebuchwephesha. Indvuna yetiko letekwatisa imphunga Savana Mazia ikhuluma ngesikhatsi ivula lo mhlangano ithi live ngemitsetfo yalo kumele litibeke kahle ihambisana netikhatsi talomuhla tebuchwephesha netekuchumana.
How do we play in the spacecraft arena and contribute to space domain awareness? How do we participate in satellite spectrum sharing and ownership? How do we curate and find place in the international space law and look at freedom of exploration, safety and rescue of spacecraft and astronauts, prevention of harmful interference with space activities and the environment? The role of AI in all aspects of our lives, from the law to financial services and peace initiatives, whilst protecting our citizens. These are a few of the laws we need to start thinking about, and very quickly. Because if we do not have the laws, we cannot protect the citizens. This is something that may seem far off, but it's here today.
Umphathi welibandla lengamele tekuchumana Mvila Wempi Dlamini uthi lo mhlangano utawuphindze ubuke nekuthi ngutiphi tinhlango tekuchumana lokumele live lititfutfukise.
Njengoba tinto tishintsha onke lamalanga nje ke thine sidayibamba njani ukuthi sikhone eku-adopta wona lama technologies lamasha nekuthi nje eta nje imithetho lefanele ethi bekhona seyikhona yini noma ke sesicalile yini kulungisela njengoba kukhulunywa ngabo AI nje ukuthi kufuna ukuthi afika AI akhande ethi sesinako lokuma regulations of some sort ukuthi AI kufuna ahambe ngana indlela yayo ngoba kunana kule kuthiwa bo AI for good nje ukuthi khona utawuthatha AI oganga ngaye afune kusibulala sonke kanti sifuna lo AI lo wakhaba.
Lo mhlangano wemalanga lamathathu banjwe ngaphansi kwesicubulo lesithi kucocisana lokutawubuka kukhula kwalolu hlangothi letekuchumana kucubungula nekuvikela labasebentisa tekuchumana netebuchwephesha. Etindzabeni teSwatini TV kubika Samkelisiwe Khoza nginaThemba Shabangu ezulwini.
Indvuna yetemfundvo umhlonishwa owenxumalo inike insayeya libandla lebacondzisi lelisha lenyuvesi yemaNazarene iSouthern Africa Nazarene University liyatiwa ngeSANU kutsi alihambe lente lenyuvesi ibe ngileyo lechubeka ngekusebenta kahle. Indvuna yekusho lokhu ngesikhatsi imemetela lelibandla lebacondzisi lesihlalo walo kunguSibusiso Njalinjali.
Lelibandla lebacondzisi lenyuvesi yaseNazarene Southern Africa Nazarene University litawuba sehhovisi iminyaka lengengci kulomtsatfu leminyatelo indvuna yetemfundo umhlonishwa owenxumalo indvuna ibanika insayeya ukuthi ayichubeke lenyuvesi yenta umsebenzi lomuhle.
Niyo ke ibhodi cabinet libonele ukuthi ayichubeke iyosebenza siyathemba ke sinachubeka nisibambise kungaba kubonga ku leadership yamake Faith Mlotha kuthi silitiko siyajabula kakhulu ngeperformance yakhe kaSANU. Yebo tinkinga tikhona kepha na ke indlela lasebenza ngayo kanye neboard silitiko kuncane lesingathi kumbe mhlambe asijabuli kepha na ke there is room for improvement. Lokho lokungenako lokubuya kuhulumende kuphatheke kahle kungabi ukuthi kuyangena siyakubona kumbe mhlambe kungentaba kusiko loku enough bese kuba worse ngokuthi bese ke kuyadlabhatiseka.
Sihlalo lomusha walelibandla lebacondzisi Sibusiso Njalinjali uthi batawusebenza ngekutikhandla basangene ehovisi.
Siyakuthembisa honorable minister ukuthi sitawukwenta njalo kuncane kwanyalo lo singakukhuluma ngoba vele lo msebenzi siyawubona uyachubeka uyasenjetwa sine sitawucela nje ukuthi usijaje ngaloko lesitabe sikwentile ukubonakala ukuthi singabe sosikhuluma sifeketha into letingenteka singatifezi utawusijaja ngemiphumela yethu lesiyentako ma-challenges lakhona esanu siyawati vele atawudzinga kwekuthi nathi sithi apply our minds siphindze sitame ukucela uNkulunkulu asisite kwekuthi kuloko lesikubonako naloko lesikutfolako ku-management sithole lawo mhlawumbe innovative solutions to try and steer the university.
Lamanye amalunga aleli bandla ngilakhe igama Thulani Simelane, Qinisile Thwala, Dr. Buyisile Dladla, Anthony Masilela, mabhalane walo usekale mphathi wale nyuvesi yasesanu lokungu-Dr. Faith Mngome Zulu. Edinzabeni kubika Fortune Dlangamandla ngisembabane.
Tebuchwepheshe tingasita kunciphisa tingoti emisebentini. Lokhu-ke kushiwo indvuna yelitiko letisebenti kanye nenhlalakahle yato umhlonishwa Philip Thelezi. Bekakatsi amelele nguphazi Zwane ngesikhatsi kwetfulwa inkampani lebitwa ngekwekutsi yebantfu yaSwatini lekhicita iphindze itsengise timphahla tebuchwephesha ema-electronic gadgets lasita kuvikela tingoti emigwacweni.
Inkampani yebantu eSwatini itawusebenzisana nenkampani iBoyco Electronics yelive laseNingizimu Afrika lesengumkantshubomvu kule nzima yetebuchwephesha ikhicita imikhicito lesebenta etimayini emahlathini lakugaywa khona kanye netekwakha lapho kusebenta khona imishini lehambako kubala kuleminye yemsebenti lemkhulu kuthi kuvikele tingoti. Le mpahla ifaka leyo elenta ukuthi tisebenti kanye nalokuhambako lokusebenta kuleti nhlangothi kukhone kuma noma-ke kuhambe kancane uma kutakwenteka tingoti.
If we are not careful, those mines will actually create more accidents than more wealth. This is good, and I think this is the right time. When can you come and set up? We don't want you to be a briefcase salesman, come and sell us gadgets and then take all our money and run away to Johannesburg.
Umcondzisi wenkampani yebantu beSwatini Lutfo Dlamini uthi batosita kwakhe ematfuba emisebenzi uthi inzuzo letakwakhiwa ngale nkampani kumele izuze wonke emaswati uthi batawukhicita imikhicito bese ithengiselwa kulamanye emave.
Such innovative proximity detection system are highly demanded in our workplace community of forward-thinking industries dedicated to ensuring occupational safety and health in our workplaces.
Indvuna yelitiko letisebenti kanye nenhlalakahle yato umhlonishwa Philip Thelezi bekathi imele ngilobuke tekuphepha emsebentini kuleli tiko phazi Zwane. Zwane uthi le mshini alifana nale itawusita kuvikela tingoti uthi kumcoka kusemsebentini kube yindzawo lephephile ngawo kumcoka kuthi sisukumele etulu tona tekuphepha uthi tekuphepha kumele tibe setinhlitiyweni.
From a business perspective, we honestly believe that the group can add value to Eswatini. There's real opportunity to develop the country as the mining industry is expanding here.
Umphathi wenkampani iBoyco Electronics letosebenzisana nenkampani yebantu beSwatini Anthony Lawrence uthi batawucasha emaswati angeke balandze tisebenti ngephandle uthi bakholelwa ukuthi leli kutawuba litfuba lelihle lekutfutfukisa leSwatini. Imikhicito yale nkampani isebenziswa tisebenti tetimayini letifika ku-56,000 leminye yayo ifakwe etimotolweni letingu-6,000 etimayini taseNingizimu Afrika. Edinzabeni kubika Fortune Dlangamandla isehhotela leHappy Valley eZulwini.
Iphalamende ithi ayigculiseki ngetimphendvulo tembiko wekusebenta kwelihhovisi lakandvunankhulu ikakhulukati letiphatselene nekunakwa kwephalamende kanye nekwekutsi uhulumende utawuyilungisa njani indzaba yetinkinga letikhungetsela uhlangothi lwetemphilo. Lamalunga bekakhuluma ngesikhatsi iphalamende emukela umbiko wekusebenta kwalelihhovisi landvunankhulu.
Uthe kube nashukumise ukuthi indlaba yesikhulu iphasise umbiko welikomidi lelibuke kusebenta kwelihhovisi landvunankhulu endlini yaba yesikhulu sihlalo walo umhlonishwa nathi Hlophe sekelwe lilunga lephalamende lenkundla zesiko umhlonishwa David Nkamphalala emalunga benekukhala ngalombiko walo lovisi landvunankhulu.
Lapha lo isicele nako iPhalamende lokunye lokufaka indzaba ya free to air channel yePhalamende sacela indzaba yanatulo letuyisana kotala Phalamende kwaba indzaba yasekitchen la ukhanza sema-officials makete kuma-hearings nema-submissions sekakhanza emile ngale kwangena le budget ngalokuthi kusidzingeko kepha nje kwayathi mayifika ibudget lapha uthola ukuthi kude kusho kunye lesiniketwa kona.
Tawucela ukuthi kube ashintshe lama-figures where Parliament is concerned, because we have been doing a lot of consultations with the ministry and the finance committee and everybody else. So there have been some change in figures. Kulenza by Parliament.
bekanganzi nakachaza ndonankulu bekubhala nje ukuthi acknowledge and appreciated. Angibuyele kwami ngibuke kakhulu la ama-questions. Ngibute ngendzaba yaka-health mina. Kwekuthi utayi-addressa athini. Wangiphendula ukuthi acknowledge and appreciated. I don't understand what does he appreciate? Because I'm asking. Kwekuthi utayi-addressa ayithini indzaba yaka-health.
Losihlalo kubuyile endlini netimphendvulo.
Endzabeni yesikhathi ukuthi khona longakaphenduleki indzaba tabo noted umhlonishwa angivele ngisho bahlonishwa ukuthi isikhathi angeke sibalekele ukuthi bese sisemva nasikakhumbula ukuthi litiko lamhlonishwa ndvunangu laba ngiyo lekugcina kulo kepha ke enkulumeni yami ngitsena ngikhuluma ngathi bahlonishana beva ukuthi khona la khona ngathi kusele khona siyacela bafake ama-questions bafake ama-motions badokhona kuphenduleka hayi ngoba kukhona lokubalekelwako kungenteka lokunye ligcina selidlobha lidlojwa nje libhekile wavele sijaye kubamba lesikhathi
Indlu yabaya esikhulu bese yemukela umbiko ekusebenta kwelovisi lamvunankulu uhamba netichibelo tawo. Etindzabeni yeSwatini TV kubika Samkelisiwe Khoza naSimuva Shongwe naThemba Shabangu naBongani Masuku ePhalamende.
Umcondzisi wetinkhulumo ePhalamende umhlonishwa Jabulani Maziya uthi iPhalamende yawendisisa umsebenzi wayo nematiko ahulumende ukuthi ke kubhekeke ukuthi yatithathe tincomo tePhalamende. Umcondzisi wetinkhulumo bekakhuluma ngesikhathi yaphendvula umbuto wendlu ekuthenini iPhalamende inawo yini emandla noma kulapho kwendluliswa khona imibiko nje.
Ngesikhathi ichubeka nemsebenzi wendlu elisuku indlu yabaya esikhulu ngalesithathu nasekumele kwemukelo umbiko welikomidi elibuke kusebenta kwelitiko letemcebo waphansi nemandla endlini yabaya esikhulu wekusebenta kwalelitiko lilunga lePhalamende lenkundla yaseKhubutha umhlonishwa Mzwandile Mamba ubhekise umbuto komcondzisi wetinkhulumo ePhalamende umhlonishwa Jabulani Mabuza ukuthi engabe kudzingidwa kwemibiko yekusebenta kwematiko ahulumende ngiyo iPhalamende kuyawenda yini umehluko noma kuyendluliswa nje.
Ngacela nje ukuthi ngive from you ukuthi velele lesike sikhulume la kulama reports njengalanga ale budget latsinzi budget kuyawenda invela umehluko ngoba kubuya kunema suggestions lebe siwafakile la khathi ngisakhuluma nje general kulalamanye ama suggestions lebukhanzathi besiwaphakamisa kanjani bengicela clarity lapho umcondzisi ukuthi kuleke lesikhuluma la endlini kuyamaterialize yini kulama reports noma siya rubber stamp asengibute nje specifically ukuthi are we rubber stampers here thina or not.
Umcondzisi wetinkhulumo ePhalamende unikete timphendvulo.
Bahlonishwa abasiwe ma rubber stamp. That's the straight answer. Kuya kusuke kukhulunywa and kubhekeke ukuthi kubuye timphendvulo baphendvulwe bahlonishwa kuloko labakubutile. Kepha ke again edena kubahlonishwa kumcoka nalokuthi bahlonishwa bangameli ukuthi kuze kube ngilesikhathi lesi ngoba lama reports ayabuya kubahlonishwa nala timphendvulo bese ke bahlonishwa ke bayahlangana bayayibuka le report sebayisayina ke ukuthi idate ongena endlini uma ngabe ke kukhona ukukhala ukuveta ngaleso sikhathi leso noma ke ukuvetele nakusa debate kokuthi kune issue le kanje noma nanihlangene nelikomiti kune issue le kanje lengakaphendvuleki kahle kuyo ngibeka umuntu ongidayiraise noma sesendlini batifundzise kukwenda kanjalo bahlonishwa kuyakwenda ke ukuthi umsebenzi ube lula kodwa nje bahlonishwa basiwe ema rubber stamps umhlonishwa.
Indlu yabaya esikhulu ke bese yemukela lo mbiko walelikomiti wekusebenta kwelitiko letemcebo waphansi nemandla. Etindzabeni yeSwatini TV kubika Samkelisiwe Khoza naSimuva Shongwe naThemba Shabangu ePhalamende.
Litiko letekulima selicalile kukhokha imali ngaphansi kwesikhwama sekuthuthukisa abalimi lesatiwa nge-Agriculture Development Fund. Maphalanelo omkhulu Sydney Simelane sewuchazile ke ukuthi ngumalini lona lesewukhoshiwe kwesekela abalimi kulesikhwama semali lekungu-53 million lesisukunyiswe ngeminyaka wanga-2023.
Mapalanelo omkhulu uthi balimi labasakhula bangaboleka imali lesuka ku5,000 emalangeni kuya ku50,000 emalangeni. Uvetile ukuthi labalimela kuthengisa bona bangaboleka imali lefika ku5 million emalangeni.
Emaloni lesiso approve lenyalo sebacishe bangu10 bantu lesibaniketile lawo maloans. and nawubuka le mali le lapho lesibanikete yona it's around 5 million emalangeni sebabonke labo bantu lapho. Siyafisa-ke nekusho kokuthi asikemi asikagcini. Kusukela nje sibanikile laba lama loans sekangenile amanye ama application la ngu-17. As a matter of fact akusiki ukuthi angu-17 lama applications. Ngilese siwahlungile sawabona ukuthi kulo 17 vele cishe ikhona i-potential noma-ke i-viable i-project yabo. Otherwise, there are far more than that applications lakhona angena nje on a daily basis and lawo ma-applications bese siyawahlunga-ke sibuke. Ngiyafisa kusho nje siveni senkosi kokuthi nasiwahlunga lama applications asihlungi sibeke lapha eceleni kodwa siyahlunga sikubhalele sisho ukuthi i-application yakho ayikemukeleki because of reasons ABC nakhona futhi sikutshele ukuthi hamba ulungise naku bese uyayibuyisa ngoba vele sifuna kusita wona emaswati.
Uchazile ukuthi balimi labafise ukuthi bathole kwesekelwa ngaphansi kwalesikhwama bangamikisa ticelo tabo kuma-RDAs noma ehhovisini lelitiko eMbabane. Unikete isiqiniseko sekuthi litiko liyaqinisekisa ukuthi labo labaniketwa imali ngaphansi kwalesikhwama ngulabo labatawukhona kuyibuyisa kude kuzuze labanye. Inhlangano yebalimi kuleli Eswatini National Agricultural Union yathembise kuniketa umuvo wayo kuloku ngalesine. Etindzabeni teSwatini TV kubika Nelson Wendlangamandla nginavuma inkosi Nzinisa eMbabane.
Bosomabhizinisi labayimfica labaye kuyawukhangisa event laseNdiya bakhonile-ke kwakha imali lengetulu kwetinkulungwane letintsatfu 3,000 emalangeni umuntu amunye. Lokhu kuvetwe ngilobukela uhlangothi lwemisebenti yetandla etiko letemabhizinisi zodwa vilakazi uma achaza ukuthi bahambe njani kulombukiso we-Suraj Kund lapho khona bebesekelwe lihhovisi lebenxusa lelive leNdiya.
Ma-artisans lakhonile kuya embukisweni athi akabe ngu-9 imfica abekaphethe imisebenzi letha ube wesigodvo ulubumba timbali tikhwama natikhwama letitsengisa kamanzini emarket nayo yonke imikhiqido yelive longayicabanga. Timakethe tikhona ngoba labafikile esitolini batitsanza tintfo tetfu baye bese sebayawenda ema-order bese kwenta ukuthi-ke bakhicite betfu bakhicite dijike tintfo kuposelwane ngetindlela letiningi.
Dumisani Mnisi we-Master Artworks uthi kuthengisa kulombukiso waseven leNdiya kumsitile kakhulu.
We did make a lot of sales in India basically, so yeah, abakhona vele ama-sales lebe sikuphethe noma bekukuncane but nje sakhona cishe kukuthengisa konke lebe sikuphethe. India on its own, it's a very big market kwayena because it's just a matter of ukuthi niba nama-products lamaningi mhlambe mani yakhona niyovakashela khona mhlambe niyonda lama-shows, otherwise kwabona nje babodvana it's a very huge market ngalendlela bathenga ngayo.
Obukwelihlangothi lobosomabhizinisi labenta imisebenzi yetandla zodwa vilakade uthi somabhizinisi amunye uye akhe imali lelinganiselwa ngetulu kwa-3,000 emalangeni kulombukiso. Chubeka uyaveta ukuthi umkhicido labahamba nawo awusiyo lomningi kakhulu njengoba kusuke kungiloyo wekukhombisa kwekuthi bosomabhizinisi bakuleli bathengisa ini. Etindzabeni teSwatini TV kubika Nelson Wendlangamandla nginavuma inkosi Nzinisa eMbabane.
Kunebantfwana lebebahlukunyetwa kabuhlungu lapha endzaweni yasesiphumelele enhlangano. Labantfwana babili kanti bebahlukunyetwa ngilomunye make lobeka bakhungatitfo tangasense kanti uma bomile kuthiwa bebanathiswa imanti langcolile endlu yangasense. Munye wabo ugcine ashonile kulandzela kushaywa ngilomake labekahlala naye kanti nakubudwa lomake ukuthi ngibani umntali wabo uphendvule wathi balomunye umfundisi lohlala ezulwini. Umbukeli-ke uyexwayiswa ngaletinye letitfombe letihlamukisa umtimba kulombiko.
Make lobekahlala nalabantfwana lababili labalinganiselwe eminyakeni losihlanu kuthiwa ufike kulesitandisa kaMango esiphumelele ngaDisemba eminyakeni lophelile. Kanti unabo labanye bantfwana labangebakhe lahlala nabo. Kuthiwa itolo munye bantfwana balomake uvuye bomakhelwane atsi munye bantfwana labahlala endlini sewucacile. Lokhu bese kwanzisa tinsolo kwabitwa sive kanye nemaphoyisa eMango. Ekungeneni kulendlu kuthiwa labantfwana babakhanze bagcwele ingadi munye ahlele ecibini lengadi agcwele tingongoma enhloko. Ngemuva kokuphuthunyiswa esibhedlela ngemaphoyisa kuthawube seyuyashona kanti lomunye uselashwa. Makhelwane longakatsanzi kuvela kanye neliphoyisa lemango bathela abantwana bebonzile emtimbeni ngalokusabisako lokukhomba ukuthi abakutholi kudla.
Sathi sihleli nje la kubo 8-9 in lapho samva makangena nje seva sekukhala umntwana wathi Sithembile hayibo kwendekani ngathi mina hayibo kusho ngabe yamshaya ngabe wendeni seva ke ukuthi athi hayi nikudleleni udla kwami niwadleleni ma cornflakes ami yona ifish yami ke kwabutakala silabantwana bafika kanjani bakuphi babani wazama ke yena lo mnikati wabo lo make lokuchaza kuthi ngathi abantwana bemfundisi kwashayelwa kwathiwa lo babe uyakwadini lo labantwana ukuthi balandlini wathi yena uyati kwashayelwa lo babe wazi lo babe cha yini uyati vele ukuthi kunebantwana kwaphinze ke kwabiyelwa endlini kwabukwa labantwana vele kwakhanza wathi la mntwana lo munye vele uyachucha ngathi ufuna kushona yasho nathi akusibakhe wathi bemfundisi wamcela ukuthi amhlalele napho bengendeki sibabone besitibuta kona ukuthi abadlali ngani nalabanye bengendeki sibabone bona lokhu ke sebabakhanzala ebathroom.
Nkosi yami ngathi bebashayelwa ukuthi bayadichamela bayachama lesikutholile sithole ukuthi lo munye uyakhungwa la kuleli gwayi lakhe uyakhungwa ukuthi uvala umchamo ukuthi angachami lokho sikukhanza kungasiko lokuhle lebekwendeka kulempilo yalabantwana lokunye lesikuvile bebahlukubeteka ngendzaba ukuthi ngoma ngabe sekuthiwa sowomile lo munye sofuna kunathe manje bayiswa lapha endlini toilet banathe lapha uba nathi lemi toilet ale flashako so khanza sebayathiwa banathe lapha.
Dakamiti tibene kusola ukuthi kunekwendeka ikhona imisimeto ebumnyama lo make lebekayenda ngalabantwana lochumanisa emaphoyisa nesive ephindile vilakati uvumile lo mbiko washo ukuthi lo msola usaphenywa ngamaphoyisa. Thando kuhle Mdluli entsabeni yeSwatini TV siphumelele.
Kutemdlalo mengameli wenhlangano yemidlalo wekudveba iEswatini Angling Association Derek Hoff uthi livela kangwane selehlile kuma World Rankings lapho khona usuke endzaweni yesine lehlela endzaweni yemfica.
Inhlangano edlalisa umdlalo wokudweba kuleli eSwatini Angling Association phambilini abanomlambo lomuhle kumeleleni livela kuleli emidlalweni yangaphandle. Imiphumela yema-World Rankings yakuleli lisuke endzaweni yesine emhlabeni lehlela endzaweni yemfica.
Eswatini has slipped in our rankings because we weren't able to participate in Italy last year or Portugal the year before due to funding. So
Mengameli wenhlangano lomdlalo kuleli Derek Hoff uthi kungangenela imidlalo lemikhulu yemhlaba yema-World Championships eminyakeni lemibili endlulile ngikho lokwente ukuthi lehle kunemiphumela. Mengameli Derek uthi live labangekho emidlalweni yema-World Championships eminyaka 2023 eveni lasePortugal laphinze labangekho eminyakeni lophelile emidlalweni liyabanjelwa eveni laseTaliyane etizatfu tekubabete imali yekungenela lemicutselwano.
Eswatini's goal is to finish on the podium this year. So I'm very excited about that. We have had a podium finish in the past where we came second in Venezuela, but that's a number of years ago now. So it's time for us to finish on the podium.
Derek Hoff uphethe ngekuveta ukuthi lokungcono ukuthi lemidlalo yalonyaka ema-World Championships inyanga yenyoni itabanjelwa eveni laseNingizimu Afrika lapho khona babuke ukuphinze benyuke kuma-rankings alemidlalo emhlabeni. Yelo umsakathi eSwatini TV temidlalo ngilinda Dlamini kanti umbiko uhlanganisa nguFabrice Msonera eMbabane.
Umcondzisi wemicibisholo Sports Foundation lokuyinhlangano lebuke ukuthuthukisa imidlalo lehlukahlukene kuleli Trevor Shongwe usilolu hlelo kwanyalo libuke kakhulu umdlalo webhola yetinyawo kodwa ke kusifiso sabo lesikhulu ukuthi bathola indlela yokubambiseka bakhona nekuthuthukisa naleminye imidlalo lapha eveni. Lenhlangano yasukunyiswa ngeminyaka wa 2017 kanti ke isebentela enkhundleni yase Prince of Wales eMbabane.
Program lesinayo namhla ngileya ka Little Kickers ingaphasi kwalo mcibisholo Sports Foundation. Mangaqhaza nje kancane lo mcibisholo Sports Foundation iprogram liyaqala 2017 yekudevelopa onke ama-sports, swimming, basketball, athletics nabo tennis, but ke ngaloku babede ngathini infrastructure noma tindzawo tekudlalela sithi khanze sesifocusa kakhulu kulo Little Kickers lo ngile soccer program yena wale bhola. So imiphumela mihle kakhulu ngoba uthatha kubuka nje labantwana sicale nabo nga-2017 incumbi yabo la. Labanye babo seba feature kulama junior national teams incumbi yabo nje ibulk yabo nakuma peak teams ama regional peak teams ayabe seba featureisha. Sicabanga ukuthi ikhona iprogress. So sisa engage na town council ukuthi kumbe in the future under lo mqibisholo Sports Foundation sende ongena namanye ama sports. Singa concentrate kakhulu la bholeni, singagqili kakhulu la bholeni. Senelayo lokunye. So ngicabanga ukuthi mhlawumbe utasilalela city council sisa engage. Kahle kahle mayisungula le program beyithi tawuhamba onke nama peri urban areas noma netikolo ama primary schools, but ke ngaloku babede ama resources siselimited ukuthi sitelana. Uma sesinayo le support ngabekisa ku corporate noma etinkampanini noma kuphi, singaze siya expanda ke thu letindzawo letinye, sicashe labo coach labahleli nemaphepha emakhaya ukuthi babuye basite ke si expand yonke le mbabane. Mhlawumbe ngekuhamba kwesikhathi singagcina sesiyana kulamanye amadolobha.
Okay, watch out. Njengoba sihlehla siphethe kanjalo ke tindzaba tesiswati sitabuya sicocisane na Sanele Sibiya somnotho ngendzaba budget speech yase South Africa lena 0.5 VAT increase.
Eswatini TV has signed a code of conduct that is enforced by the Eswatini Communications Commission. We are committed to reporting news that is accurate, comment that is fair, and programming that does not amount to hate speech or the description of gratuitous violence or explicit sex. For any complaints of our programming, please contact us on 2411-9600 or email info@eswatinitv.co.za. You can also contact the Eswatini Communications Commission on 2406-7000 or write a letter to ECCOM on PO Box 7811 Mbabane. Email address is info@ecom.org.za.
Kude lesinye isikhathi ngaphandle kwalesi.
Aba research bafunze.
Being risky means ukuthi nalokuwa kwayo kulula.
Nathi kufuna sente ukukhicita lokusembili.
When you choose your adventures, you do so with an open heart and a desire for the unexpected. You embark on journeys to discover new worlds, full of wonder. You choose a path to awaken your senses, a world to make you look up and realize just how inspiring this life can be. Arrive and awaken your heart. Explore life in ways only thought possible in your dreams. Discover just how far you go to expand your understanding of life's greatest mysteries. There's just one place on this planet with so much to offer. Now is the time for you to have the royal experience.
Welcome to Eswatini Lifestyle. This is your ultimate guide to the entertainment, to the lifestyle and the culture of Eswatini. Eswatini Lifestyle.
Eswatini Lifestyle.
Eswatini Lifestyle.
From 6:30 to 7 p.m.
On Eswatini TV, Sibuko Semaswati.
On Eswatini TV, Sibuko Semaswati.
You're watching Kusile Breakfast Show. This is our first live interview this morning. A tax hike, especially on value-added tax, popularly known as VAT, is never just about the numbers on a spreadsheet, but it's about people, it's about businesses, and it's about the cost of living and the ripple effects that stretch far beyond national borders. And right now, South Africa is at the center of it all. The country is proposing a 0.5% VAT increase over 2 years, taking it from 15% to 16%. Now, that may not seem like much at first glance, but in an economy already battling inflation, a weakening rand, and political uncertainty, this is a big deal. And let's not forget, Eswatini's economy is deeply tied to South Africa's. What happens there matters here at home as well. But this isn't just an economic story, it's a political one. This VAT, of course, it is being seen as the first real test for South Africa's new government of national unity. Can the coalition hold firm, or will opposition from the DA, EFF, and MKP derail it? To break this down, Sanile Sbia joins us virtually. He is going to help us understand all the numbers. Sanile, a very good morning to you, and welcome to the program. This VAT hike and its wider impact is what I want us to really focus on. Why now? The numbers first. South Africa set to rise to, it is set to rise to 16% by 2026-2027. What's the government's rationale here?
Thank you, Mr. Ngumalo, and good morning to the viewers. So what we are seeing with this, it was kind of expected that South Africa would want to increase some of their taxes, because we do know that South Africa is actually heavily indebted, with their debt to GDP ratio in excess of 70%. So they do need to find ways of raising that money and actually lowering their deficit scope. So we did expect this as economists, to try and ensure that they balance out their books through, increasing domestic revenues and not borrowing as much as they used to before, because it is getting to points where it is no longer sustainable. They're spending quite a lot on debt repayment and that leaves no scope for social development and, business development within South Africa.
Mr. Spear, I think that makes sense. You saying that it was sort of expected, but is it purely about revenue, or is there more at play here? Because, critics say that this will squeeze an already struggling consumer base. Is this hike economically justifiable, or will it do more harm than good?
I hear you, Mr. Ngumalo. In economics, managing the economy is always, quite a juggling act, trying to balance things up. Like we always say, it's an art, it's not a science, right? So right now, what, Minister Kondongwana is trying to balance out is, how do I increase domestic revenues, maintaining the same level of spending to drive the economy, while at the same time trying to balance on the previous years of spending. So in a way, economically, given their debt burden, South Africa's debt burden it makes sense. It's one of the things that have to be done. But when you now juxtapose that with the already struggling consumer, trying to, facing a lot of those cost of living pressures, and we've seen interest rates only just come down, I think, once in South Africa. So still there are those cost of living pressures that are heavily laden on the consumer. So that's why from the consumer side, it really doesn't make sense, because they are still dealing with a lot of cost of living pressures. That's why we're seeing the trade unions saying they're going to take into the streets to try and combat this, because it doesn't really make sense from the side of the consumer. And also, I think it's an issue of saying, but you, ANC government, got us here. Why now do you expect us to pay to get the country out of this situation? You are borrowing as if there's no tomorrow, but right now that borrowing spree is catching up with you, and you expect us as the public to take that burden. So I think it is also a test of whether the ANC government should actually remain in power, and whether they've made the right policies all along, Mr. Nxumalo.
Okay, now that we have that context, let's really drill into the Eswatini effect, brace for impact, or, maybe let's look at Eswatini imports. The majority of its goods from South Africa. If this VAT increase goes ahead, what does that mean for the Kingdom of Eswatini?
In my analysis, Nxumalo, there is two things to expect from this VAT increase. If it goes through, we would expect our finance minister to follow suit. And I mean, it would favor him in a lot of ways, because he would also be increasing on domestic revenue mobilization. And he can always say, it's not my fault, it's what South Africa has done. And you know that when South Africa increases it, we have to increase as well, to ensure that we maintain that Segulula cross-border trade with South Africa, where the consumer or the business person simply just submits invoices, and it's for government to claim that money from the Republic of South Africa. That's why we've kept the VATs at the same levels, to ensure that it stays a consumption tax. The consumer does not necessarily have to pay the VAT at the border and have to claim it back. That was the process, before the introduction of the Segulula VAT tax regimen between South Africa and Eswatini. So that's the first one we should expect, and I think that would be what we call a political windfall for the finance minister in the domestic economy, because it's additional revenue that he had not intended. And when everything falls, it doesn't fall on his head, it falls on the South African head. That's the first one. Alternatively, we could break rank and not increase the VAT, as it were, at this point in time. And that would now make it a bit difficult for the collection of VAT across borders, but it's not something that is unheard of. It has been done before, it happened for the longest time, but the process becomes a bit tedious, where the consumer and the business person has to pay the VAT at the border and then later claim it from the South African government. So there was a process that would used to take like 1 or 2 weeks before. So it somehow felt like an additional tax burden on the consumer and the producer in the domestic economy, in the sense that you pay the money and then you have to wait those few days to claim it back, Mr. Nxumalo. So those are the two scenarios that I am foreseeing right now, but I do anticipate that the minister would actually go for the former.
Yeah, and our minister already expressing his own concern, reacting to Gondongwana's speech. Should then Eswatini be looking at its own fiscal buffers, or is this storm something that we simply have to weather?
At this point, Mr. Nxumalo, like I'm saying, if I was the minister, I'd be celebrating in private, because this is a political windfall that in a way you don't have to take the hit for. You could simply say, Gondongwana has increased the VAT, and I have to do the same within the domestic economy. And that would actually show up domestic resource mobilization and improve those fiscal buffers, Mr. Nxumalo. And in a way, it would allow us as a country to borrow less. If you looked at the minister's budget, there is a close to 3% GDP deficit that he is projecting at around I think it's 1.9 or 2.9 billion that he was projecting. So right now, if we can increase VAT then you could lower that borrowing cost, that level of borrowing, which is something that would work well for the economy, because we actually worried is actually getting closer. It's actually way above the 40% now, with our estimations predicting around 43, 44%, and should rise to 45% once we get these new loans in. So that is something that we do not want as a country, because what South Africa is dealing with right now is a situation we call a debt overhang. When you take too much debt and then it becomes a bit difficult to pay back that debt, and you do not have much scope for, social provisioning and other expenditures that government is supposed to take into cognizance, Mr. Nxumalo. So there is a bit of that balancing act that would expect Minister Neil to actually try and whether if and if there's a big if on whether this proposal will go through, because of the politics that that's around this VAT increase in South Africa.
Yeah, this very, very clear and glaring political fallout, which you are coining a windfall, obviously a test for South Africa's GNU, right? Now, the VAT hike turning into a political lightning rod, rather, the DA, the EFF, and the MKP have already vowed to reject it. How much of a threat is this to the stability of South Africa's GNU? Also, before you go on with that, I also want to understand, if the proposal doesn't pass, how else can South Africa plug the revenue gap? Are there alternatives that are on the table, possibly?
Thank you, Mr. Nxumalo. As you rightly pointed out, this is the first test, and it seems to be the biggest test for this GNU. I mean, it's quite unheard of that a party in government, that's the DA, we do know that they are in government, but they are going to oppose this. So they have vowed to oppose to that. They're going to oppose this. So that's one of the first tests, and we're going to see whether this GNU will come out of this alive. And there are fears that it could just crumble and break down. We're going to see a situation such as that we saw in Germany a couple of weeks ago, where Chancellor Olaf Scholz had to actually call elections because his coalition had actually broken down. So that is the first one. And for context in this debt conundrum in South Africa, it's they've been running a resource-based economy, such that when the resources now are not performing well in global markets, that's what then causes this type of breakdown within government. So the very first step, that the alternative to this, Mr. Nxumalo, would obviously be to borrow more. But don't borrow more to actually sustain social expenditures, but borrow more to revive the economy, because when the economy starts growing, then you're going to collect a bit more of tax.
Okay, because of time, I do see that we only have 2 minutes left before we have to take our traffic update, but I just want to quickly look at, other key budget takeaways here. I am seeing that it also includes higher taxes on alcohol as well as tobacco. Am I getting the sense here from what you said earlier that this could fuel cross-border shopping, making Eswatini a more attractive market for South African consumers?
In an ideal world, if we were producing quite a lot of those commodities domestically, yes, we would expect that to happen.
So it's a window of opportunity.
Yeah, it would be a window of opportunity if we had the productive capacity and the productive capability. But right now, if you look at the numbers, we import quite a lot from South Africa because we do not have that leeway, that domestic productive capability, Mr. Nxumalo. So that's what we would expect. But then at the same time, if you look at the tax regimen between South Africa and Eswatini, in terms of those what we call sin stocks, they seem to be relatively at the same level. So those things just cancel each other out, because even domestically, the minister has actually tabled a proposal to increase those sin taxes.
Can't we then bolster our tobacco farming as well as our alcohol production, given that, of course, we are a small economy, but we have arable land for tobacco, and we could put plants for alcohol production as well, and really leverage this window of opportunity. Is this something that is practical to do in the short term?
In the short term, it is not, Mr. Nxumalo, because if you look at the ownership, the arrangement of commerce in Eswatini, I'll probably say the number is around 85% to 90% of these companies that are in this domestic economy are actually owned in South Africa. So the decisions are made across borders. But what you would see is rather a realignment and a shift of those productive capabilities to the domestic economy, to the Eswatini economy, if it then becomes cost effective to do it in Eswatini rather than in South Africa. But again, that's a decision that lies with the South African owners of these companies, not necessarily the domestic companies.
Mr. Sbiya, very, very great insights as always. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. He has been our economist this morning, chiming into some of the economic indicators, with regards to some of the fiscal developments that we have seen in South Africa, some of which Eswatini is celebrating, and some of which we may be concerned about. But we will see it develop, and they will be sure to bring him onto the show anytime there are changes. Let's go for a net break. We have our traffic update when we return.
When you choose your adventures, you do so with an open heart and a desire for the unexpected. You embark on journeys to discover new worlds full of wonder. You choose a path to awaken your senses, a world to make you look up and realize just how inspiring this life can be. Arrive and awaken your heart. Explore life in ways only thought possible in your dreams. Discover just how far you go to expand your understanding of life's greatest mysteries. There's just one place on this planet with so much to offer. Now is the time for you to have the royal experience.
Bekunesikhathi sethu sevele silimele kusele nje imizuzu lemibili kubumbana insimbi yesikhombisa lomhla ekuseni. Ncenye sitawu khona kushwamba kanye i-traffic update yethu lesiphiwa ngumntolo lomhla ekuseni. Ntolo sikuvusele engabe umbukeli lomuhla yini la kufuna icaphele emigwaqweni?
Ngikuvusele Nguni, ngivusele naye umbukeli we-Kusile Breakfast Show. Imigwaqo elivela kaNgwane sesihlolile, imigwaqo eminingi iyahambeka kulolu suku lanamuhla. Yebo kona sikhona tikhinyabeto lesikhona kufaka ekhathi sigosi emigwaqweni kanye nato tilwane letiphazamisako sisashayela sibashayeli sithi nje bashayeli abente isiqiniseko ukuthi basashayela bayadinaka kakhulu leto tikhinyabeto ukuze ukuthi siphephe sisawusebenzisa umgwaqo lomkhulu losuka khona eNgwenya ubheke khona kaManzini siwuhlolile loyo mgwaqo uyahambeka kude lokungakanani lokuthi ikhinyabeto lesingakubikela yena umshayeli ngaphandle nje kwalapha eNazarini kude khona emarobhotini noma ke kude tibane temgwaqo lesilapha eceleni kwaseNazarini esibhedlela kwendekile ke lapho ngesithuba sasebusuku la khona kube nengoti lendekako lapho iloli yashayisa lona tibane temgwaqo leti kutshela ukuthi kufuna ubheke kuphi na uqhamuka ngakhona emavuso leto tibane temgwaqo ke bese setiyasheka ke noma tiyawa lokwenta kwekuthi bashayeli labaqhamuka ngakhona emavuso bangakhoni kubona kwekuthi kufanele yini kwekuthi bahambe lokukhona ke letinye tibane na uqhamuka khona ngase remand nato tonke nje leti nhlangothi sisasebenza kwanyalo kwatise phela ukuthi basengafiki laba lekufanele ukuthi basisite basi-disconnect noma ke batende ukuthi singasebenzi. Sithi nje bashayeli abaqaphelisise basetawusebenzisa tona tibane temgwaco takhona eNazarini. Akhona-ke emaphoyisa nyalo ekuseni lekatabe alawula tona timotolo ukuthi uyiphi lekufanele ihambe ngiyiphi lekungafanele ihambe. Laba-ke labatabe baqhamuka kuleto tinhlangothi lakhona kubonakala ukuthi tibane temgwaco tiyasebenza siyabakhuthata ukuthi abanakisise kakhulu ngoba emaphoyisa atabe asekhathi emgwacweni abasita angabuki ukuthi tibane temgwaco timvulele bese sewuyahamba kanti-ke bese sewusibangela yona ingozi. Nje-ke abanakisise bashayeli labatawusebenzisa yona tibane temgwaco taseNazarini kulolu suku lwanamuhla. Ngaphandle kwaloko Mnguni naye umlaleli imigwaco yelive laKangwane iyahambeka kude lokungakanani ngaphandle kwaloko lesesibikile siyabonga.
Ndolo usuku libe luhle nisebenze kahle sibonga kakhulu sithembe nebabukeli batawucaphela la khona sewucela ukuthi bacaphele khona umzuzu munye ibombene insimbi yesikhombisa sibahlole netmakethe ngamatubane lathi ngwesta ubuya sichubeke netindzaba.
Eswatini TV has signed a code of conduct that is enforced by the Eswatini Communications Commission. We are committed to reporting news that is accurate, comment that is fair, and programming that does not amount to hate speech or the description of gratuitous violence or explicit sex. For any complaints of our programming, please contact us on 2411-9600 or email info@eswatinitv.co.za. You can also contact the Eswatini Communications Commission on 2406-7000 or write a letter to ECCOM on PO Box 7811 Mbabane. Email address is info@ecom.org.sz.
Kude lesinye isikhathi ngaphandle kwalesi.
Aba-researche bafunze.
Being risky means ukuthi nalokuwa kwayo kulula.
Nathi kufuna sente ukukhicita lokusembili.
Welcome back to the program. You're still watching Kusile Breakfast Show. This is the Thursday edition. We want to start with our first story. The Minister for Communications, Senator Savannah Mazia, officially opened the National Communications Forum yesterday at the Happy Valley in Ezulwini. And she had some words that she shared with the forum that were quite motivating and as a matter of urgency that they need to heed to. Let's listen.
The Eswatini Communications Commission is hosting a national communication forum with different stakeholders. The Honorable Minister of Information, Communications and Technology, Savannah Mazia, says, with the advance in the use of technology such as artificial intelligence, the country's legislations must be aligned with such technologies.
How do we play in the spacecraft arena and contribute to space domain awareness? How do we participate in satellite spectrum sharing and ownership? How do we curate and find place in the international space law and look at freedom of exploration, safety and rescue of spacecraft and astronauts, prevention of harmful interference with space activities and the environment? The role of AI in all aspects of our lives, from the law to financial services and peace initiatives, whilst protecting our citizens. These are a few of the laws we need to start thinking about, and very quickly. Because if we do not have the laws, we cannot protect the citizens. This is something that may seem far off, but it's here today.
Eswatini Communications Commission Chief Executive Mvilawempi Dlamini says this forum will help address gaps in the communication technology and broadcasting sector.
What steps can we take to ensure that all Emasetive have access to affordable and reliable communication services? How can we ensure that our broadcasting sector thrives in the digital age? How can we promote the production and distribution of high quality local content? And how do we ensure sustainability of the post office in the digital age? How can we strike the right regulatory balance to promote growth and innovation in the courier sector while protecting consumers?
The three-day National Communications Forum is themed a dialogue on industry growth, innovation, regulation, and consumer protection. Reporting for Eswatini TV News, I'm Samka Siwekoza with Themba Shabangu, Esulwini.
The Honourable Minister of Education, Owen Nxumalo, has challenged the new Board of Directors of Southern Africa Nazarene University, SANU, to ensure that the university continues to operate efficiently. The minister has made these remarks when he was announcing the board's chairperson, Sibusiso Njalinjali.
The Southern Africa Nazarene University SANU Board of Directors will serve a term of no more than 3 years. It was appointed by the Minister of Education, Honourable Owen Nxumalo.
Niyo-ke ibhodi cabinet libonele ukuthi ayichubeke iyosebenza. Siyathemba ke sinachubeka nisibambise. Kungaba kubonga ku leadership.
The minister has advised the board to ensure that the university continues to work efficiently and deliver quality work. The minister says he hopes the board will continue to work hand in hand with the current leadership of the university. He also thanks the leadership for doing a good job despite some challenges.
Siyakuthembisa honorable minister ukuthi sitawukwenta njalo kuncane kwanyalo lo singakukhuluma ngoba vele lo msebenzi siyawubona uyachubeka uyasenjetwa.
The newly appointed chairperson of the board, Sibusiso Njalinjali, states that they will work diligently as they take office. He says the minister should judge them by their work. He adds that he will prefer not to talk much, emphasizing that they are aware of the challenges faced by the institution. He says they will come up with innovative solutions to these challenges. Other members of the board include Lucky Gama, Thulani Simelane, Kusile Twala, Dr. Kusile Dladla, Anton Masilela, and Lihle Dlamini. The board secretary is the University Vice Chancellor, Dr. Faith Mngomezulu. For Eswatini TV News, Fortune Dlangamandla Mbabane.
The Minister of Labour and Social Security, Honourable Philip Telezi, says technology can help reduce workplace accidents and fatalities. The minister made this statement when introducing a company called Yebanfu Eswatini that manufactures and sells protective technology gadgets that help prevent workplace accidents. The minister was represented by Phazi Zwane.
The company Yebanfu Eswatini will collaborate with Boyco Electronics, a South African company that is a leader in technology. Boyco Electronics manufactures products used in mining, forestry, milling, and construction industries where mobile machinery operates to enhance safety and prevent accidents. The director of Yebanfu Eswatini, Lutful Dlamini, says the company aims to create job opportunities.
If we are not careful, those mines will actually create more accidents than more wealth. This is good, and I think this is the right time. When can you come and set up? We don't want you to be a briefcase salesman, come and sell us gadgets and then take all our money and run away to Johannesburg. Bank it here, spend it here, let us all enjoy the profits. So it is not correct to assume that because of our size, it is not viable to set up a business. Our country is export-oriented. So we export to all the lucrative markets you can think of.
The Minister of Labour and Social Security, Honourable Philip Telezi, was represented at the event by Phazi Zwane, who serves as the Ministry's Safety and Occupational Officer.
Such innovative proximity detection systems are highly demanded in our workplace community of forward-thinking industries dedicated to ensuring occupational safety and health in our workplaces. A safe and healthy working environment is a fundamental principle and right at work. This calls for preventive safety and health culture to be inculcated into our workplaces. A preventive safety culture can only be achieved when safety is effectively embedded in our hearts and minds as we carry on our work activities and tasks.
The Chief Executive Officer of Boyko Electronics, Anton Lawrence, whose company is partnering with the Bantu Eswatini, says they will employ a Maswati.
From a business perspective, we honestly believe that the group can add value to Eswatini. There's real opportunity to develop the country as the mining industry is expanding here. We've got to find the local right people. We've got to develop them. We've got to upskill them. We've got to train them. We've got to create local employment.
The product manufactured by this company are currently used by workers at 56,000 mining sites, with additional 6,000 units installed in mine motor vehicles in South Africa. For Eswatini TV News, Fortune Dlangamandla, Happy Valley Hotel, Ezulwini.
Well, the House of Assembly has raised concerns about the performance report of the Prime Minister's office, saying that it does not provide clarity on parliamentary issues, as well as the issues that are touching on the drug supply chain. The honourable members were speaking during the adoption of the Prime Minister's performance report.
Following a motion by the chairperson of the Prime Minister's Office Portfolio Committee, Nathi Hlophe, moving for the adoption of the committee's report, the honourable members raised concerns about the Prime Minister's report.
Lapha lo isicele naku iParliament lokunye lokufaka indzaba ya free to air channel yeParliament sacela indzaba yanatulo letuyisana kotala Parliament kwaba indzaba yasekitchen la ukhanza sema officials market kuma hearings nema submissions sekakhanza emile ngale kwangena le budget ngalokuthi kusidzingeko kepha nje kwayathi mayifika ibudget lapha uthola ukuthi kude usho kunye lesiniketwa kona
Tawucela ukuthi kube ne ashintshe lama figures where Parliament is concerned, because we have been doing a lot of consultations with the ministry and the Finance Committee and everybody else. So there have been some change in figures. Kulenza by Parliament.
Bekanganzi nakachaza ndolangulo bekubhala nje ukuthi acknowledge and appreciated. Angibuyele kwami ngibuke kakhulu la ama questions. Ngibude ngendzaba yaka health mina. Ukuthi uthi addressa athini. Wangiphendula ukuthi acknowledge and appreciated. I don't understand what does he appreciate? Because I'm asking. Ukuthi uthi addressa ithini indzaba yaka health.
The chairperson furnished the Honourable House with responses.
Endzabeni yesikhathi ukuthi khona longakaphenduleki indzaba dabo noted umhlonisho angivele ngisho bahlonishwa ukuthi isikhathi angeke sibalekele ukuthi bese sisemva nasikakhumbula ukuthi litiko lamhlonishwa ndvuna ngulaba ngiyo lekugcina kulo kepha ke enkulumeni yami ngitsena ngikhuluma ngathi bahlonishana beva ukuthi khona la khona ngathi kusele khona siyacela bafake ama questions bafake ama motions badokhona kuphenduleka hayi ngoba kukhona lokubalekelwako kungenteka lokunye ligcina selidlobha nje libhekile wavele sijaye kubamba lesikhathi.
The Honourable House then adopted the Prime Minister's report with amendments. Reporting for Eswatini TV News, I am Samgal Suekoza with Themba Shabangu, Smuva Shongwe and Bongan Masugu, Parliament.
Well, the Honourable Speaker of the House of Assembly, Jabulani Mabuza, says parliamentarians are far from mere rubber stampers. They perform a crucial role that goes beyond just approving policies. The Honourable Speaker was addressing concerns of the House about the role of parliamentarians.
When the House of Assembly convened for parliamentary work on Wednesday, when the House is supposed to adopt the Ministry of Natural Resources and Energy's Portfolio Committee report, Kubuta Member of Parliament Mzwandile Mamba directed a question to the Honourable Speaker of the House, Jabulani Mabuza, asking if the Honourable members are just rubber stampers or not.
Ngicela nje ukuthi ngive from you ukuthi vele lesi sikhulume la kulama reports njengalanga ale budget latsinzi budget kuyawenda invela umehluko ngoba kubuya kunama suggestions lebe siwafakile la khathi ngisakhuluma nje general kulalamanye ama suggestions lebukhanza athi besiwaphakamisa kanjani bengicela clarity lapho umcondzisi ukuthi kulele lesikhuluma la endlini kuyamaterialize yini kulama reports noma siya rubber stamp asengibude nje specifically ukuthi are we rubber stampers here thina or not.
The Honourable Speaker clarified on that matter.
Bahlonishwa abasiwe ma-rubber stamp. That's the straight answer. Kuya kusuke kukhulunywa and kubhekeke ukuthi kubuye impendulo. Baphendulwe bahlonishwa kuloko labakubutile. Kepha ke again ede naku bahlonishwa. Kumcoka nalokuthi bahlonishwa bangameli ukuthi kuze kube ngesikhathi lesi. Ngoba lama report ayabuya ede kubahlonishwa nalati impendulo. Bese ke bahlonishwa ke bayahlangana bayayibuka le report sebayisayina ke ukuthi idate ongena endlini. Uma ngabe ke kukhona ukukhala ukuveta ngaleso sikhathi leso. Noma ke ukuvete le nakusa debate kokuthi kune issue le kanje noma nanihlangene nelikomiti kune issue le kanje lengakaphenduleki kahle kuyo ngibeka umuntu ngidayiraise noma sesendlini batifundzise kukwenda kanjalo bahlonishwa kuyakwenda ke ukuthi umsebenzi ube lula kodwa nje bahlonishwa basuke ema-rubber stamps umhlonishwa.
The Honourable House of Assembly then adopted the committee's report on the performance of the Ministry of Natural Resources and Energy. Reporting for Eswatini TV News, I'm Samgal Swekoza with Smuva Shongwe, Temba Shabangu, and Bongan Masugu, Parliament.
About 5 million emalangeni has already been disbursed by the Ministry of Agriculture under the Agriculture Development Fund. Now, this was shared by the PS, Sydney Smelane. The 53 million emalangeni fund was launched on the year 2023, aiming to address financing gaps in the agricultural sector, as well as to support farmers and agribusinesses.
The Principal Secretary says small-scale farmers can get loans from 5,000 emalangeni to 50,000 emalangeni. He continues to say the borrowing ceiling for commercial farmers is 5 million emalangeni.
We have allocated loans to about 10 farmers, and those farmers have been allocated a sum of about 5 million emalangeni. Now, this is what I would like us to understand. The disbursement of the funds is done at intervals. So the ones that we've allocated now, we want to follow them and see the successes that they are making. Meanwhile, we are receiving other applications. Yesterday, we had a board meeting where we were looking at the activities of the fund, and I can tell you that we have already received 17 applications. And these 17 applications, when we look at the amount of money that they require, it amounts to about 17 million emalangeni. So we are getting to a position now where we realize that we need more money to assist eMaswati on this.
The Principal Secretary says due diligence is exercised when giving out the loans to ensure that those who have taken them pay the money back so that others can benefit. He says farmers who want to benefit from the fund should contact their RDAs. The Eswatini National Agricultural Union has promised to give a comment at a later stage. For Eswatini TV News, Nelson Dlangamandla, Fuminkosi Nzinisa, Mbabane.
Each of 9 artisans who attended the Surajkund Mela Trade Fair in India has made just above 3,000 malangeni, and this has been shared by the Principal Handicraft Officer, Zodwa Vilagati, when giving a briefing of how local handicraft businesses performed in the trade fair in India.
Artisans were participating in the India Trade Fair, and different handcraft products were showcased, and they were a marvel. They were a head turner because everyone was flocking into a Eswatini stall. Opportunities are there, but the biggest challenge is a language barrier. They come to our stall to communicate or engage on business opportunities, but the biggest challenge is that everyone is speaking his or her language. We can't get to the common goal of doing business. But when we get there, the products are making a hit. Different countries from around the globe converge there to this trade fair, and everyone is speaking his or her language. So we are able to engage with those from South Africa, but those from the other continents, we are unable because everyone is speaking French language, Swahili, you may name the different languages.
Dumisani Mnisi of Master Artworks says such an opportunity has helped him gain a lot of fresh knowledge which will help him with new business ideas. He continues to say he has been able to make networks which will help him expand his business.
We did make a lot of sales in India basically, so yeah, abakhona vele ama-sales kule besikuphethe noma bekukuncane but nje sakhona cishe kukuthengisa konke le besikuphethe. India on its own, it's a very big market kwayena because it's just a matter of ukuthi nibe nama-products lamaningi mhlambe mani yakhona niyovakashela khona mhlambe niyonda lama-shows, otherwise kwabona nje babodvana it's a very huge market ngale ndlela bathenga ngayo.
The principal handicraft officer says because they usually take only samples with them, each handicraft business makes slightly over 3,000 emalangeni. For Eswatini TV News, Nelson Dlangamandla, Uminkosi Nzinisa, Mbabane.
We shift gears now from our local news and we cross borders. In fact, we get into a yacht or a cargo as well as an airplane and we look at international news. The captain of cargo ship that collided with a U.S. tanker is a Russian national who remains in UK police custody. The vessel's owner said on Wednesday as it emerged that the ship failed several safety checks last year and fears over pollution of the sea remain as the tankers rejected toxic products.
The crash of the cargo ship, the Salong, headed south, surrounded by tugboats. Fears that the stricken ship would sink or have created a massive oil spill have now passed. But the Salong's captain has been arrested on charges of gross negligence manslaughter. On Monday off the Yorkshire coast, the Salong collided with an anchored oil tanker, the Stena Immaculate. It carries jet fuel for the U.S. military, and the collision created a massive hole in its hull, as well as explosions and blazes. According to the website Vessel Finder, the crash pushed the tanker 400 meters. Search and rescue operations recovered 36 crew members from the two ships, but one of the crew members remained missing.
Our working assumption is that, very sadly, that the sailor is deceased.
The two boats were stuck together for several hours, but disentangled overnight from Monday to Tuesday. The incident raised a major pollution alert. The site of the crash is near multiple nature reserves and is an important habitat for porpoises and seabirds. The British government said that while concerns of atmospheric pollution remain, it is unlikely, as was first feared, that a massive crude oil spill will occur. Another relief, the Salong was not carrying containers of toxic sodium cyanide, as was initially feared.
Counter-pollution measures and assets are already in place, and both vessels are being closely monitored for structural integrity.
Shipping collisions like this one are exceedingly rare, with strict rules and technology in place that are meant to prevent them. British officials said investigations into why and how the crash occurred are ongoing, and that air and water pollution in the area are also being tracked.
The centre-right opposition Democrats have won a surprise victory in legislative elections in Greenland, the Danish territory coveted by U.S. President Donald Trump, more than tripling their support to 29.9% of votes, official results showed on Wednesday.
Late-night celebrations at the Democratic Party headquarters in Nuuk, Greenland. The center-right opposition party took a surprise first place in the general elections, garnering almost 30% of the vote compared to 9% in 2021.
I'm overwhelmed and I'm very, very, very happy. Very happy.
The party is known for its pro-business policies and for backing a long and gradual process towards Greenland's independence. In second place, the Naleraq Party, who campaigned on a promise of rapid independence from Denmark, doubled their share of the vote to nearly 25%.
We have to be able to cooperate with other parties as well. And I do believe, as what we have seen for now, people want change. People are mostly not voting for what have been. So no matter what kind of government that's created tomorrow, I do hope solemnly that it will be for the better and for a change that people want to see.
The Inuit, Atakachijit, and Siumit parties, who make up the current ruling coalition, saw a significant drop in support, coming in third and fourth, respectively. The two parties have dominated politics on the island in recent years. The Democratic Party must now look to other parties to form a majority in the 31-seat parliament. The government that is formed is expected to map out a path to independence. The U.S. president's efforts to acquire the mineral-rich territory shone an international spotlight on the elections, and election officials in the capital Nuuk had to keep polling stations open longer to accommodate the large voter turnout. Though independence was not on the ballot, it was on voters' minds. A majority of Greenlanders and 4 out of the 5 parties running support independence, though there is plenty of disagreement on what a break with Denmark would look like.
U.S. President Donald Trump sought to boost plummeting Tesla share prices on Tuesday by briefly turning the White House into a showroom, announcing he was buying one of the electric cars made by close advisor Elon Musk and threatening anti-Musk protesters with hell.
A Tesla takeover on the south lawn of the White House. A total of 5 vehicles from the car maker on display for U.S. President Donald Trump to inspect personally under the watchful eye of his advisor/Tesla CEO, Elon Musk. Trump quickly slammed the takeover protest movement that has seen demonstrations and vandalism grip Tesla facilities, anger spilling over in response to Musk's controversial role as government efficiency czar, as well as numerous questionable comments and gestures evoking Nazi symbolism in the past few months.
He has never asked me for a favor. He didn't ask me for this. I said, you know, Elon, I don't like what's happening to you, and Tesla's a great company. I don't like what's happening. It's, from our standpoint, American cars, American made. He employs thousands of people.
Trump later took to his Truth Social platform, posting that he planned to buy a Tesla of his own. Tuesday's events have sparked backlash, with some critics accusing the president of violating federal ethics rules. Reacting to the Tesla showcase, Senator Chris Murphy said just because the corruption plays out in public doesn't mean it's not corruption. Others have compared it to a government bailout of sorts amid the car maker's sales slump. It's not the first time Trump has been accused of misusing his presidential platform. During his first term, the leader and his daughter Ivanka Trump came under fire for posing with cans of Goya beans. The photo op came after the company's CEO lauded Trump. Meanwhile, the president continues to cash in on his online store. His merchandising operation moved into overdrive between Election Day and his inauguration in January, launching at least 168 new products. The Trump Organization has made an ethics pledge that disassociates the leader from the store's day-to-day management, but its sales are still putting money directly into the president's pockets.
Since Donald Trump returned to the White House, his tariff strategy has been aggressive, particularly targeting China with tariffs to address trade imbalances, intellectual property issues, as well as unfair trade practices. He also announced tariffs on steel, as well as aluminium imports from Canada, and stock markets are plunged into chaos.
Donald Trump might have been vague over the weekend, refusing to rule out a recession, but the US president finally gave reporters a little more clarity on Tuesday.
Do you think there will be a recession? I don't see it at all. I think this country is going to boom. But as I said, I can do it the easy way or the hard way. The hard way to do it is exactly what I'm doing, but the results are going to be 20 times greater. I'm very optimistic about the country. I think we're going to have the greatest markets we've ever had.
That hard way apparently refers to Trump's repeated use of tariffs as a weapon to pressure US trading partners. Despite the gains he's promising, markets reacted nervously, a far cry from the confidence seen following his election off the back of such promises as deregulation and tax cuts. Markets swung high and low all day as confusion reigned over yet further levies on Canadian steel and aluminium. For analysts, despite Trump's own opinion over a rosy economic future, the possibility of higher inflation and recession still looms large as a consequence of uncertainty.
They've gone after the long-term structural goals first, which are kind of rebalancing U.S. trade and also trying to get more private dollars into the economy versus government spending. That is very difficult to do. It's going to take a long time. And so that lack of certainty in the market is really kind of paralyzing consumers and businesses.
Trump has long relied on the stock market as a political weather gauge. It seems his interest may now lie more in pushing ahead with his economic policies, whatever the cost.
Ukraine is currently awaiting Russia's response to the U.S. proposed ceasefire, which was discussed during the peace talks in Jeddah. While there is cautious optimism about the diplomatic progress, Ukrainians remain wary of Russia's intentions as well as the true impact of any potential agreement.
A feeling of unease reigned in Kyiv as Ukraine's fate was debated halfway across the globe in Saudi Arabia. Faced with a potentially imminent ceasefire, locals were unsure of what the future held for their country.
Considering the political situation in Ukraine, I don't think this truce will help bring peace. It seems more like a pause that the US and Russia need to plan further actions that will increase aggression against Ukraine.
The idea is good, but I think Russia will never agree to it. It's violated all agreements, and I believe it'll break this one soon as well.
Ukrainian skepticism reached beyond the capital. In the Donetsk region on Ukraine's front line, soldiers were left unconvinced.
The Russians will agree, but they won't stick to it. It's 100% certain. There's no other way. They will say in public that there are no hostilities, no shelling, but they will continue to creep forward.
On the other side of the battlefield, Russians in Moscow cautiously expressed their hopes for peace.
I don't know. I can't say anything because it is for the authorities to decide. They know better. Nothing depends on us. But we want everything to finish as quick as possible. We want to live peacefully, and we want nobody to die. There are so many deaths now.
The ceasefire could...
This morning, we'll go for a net break. We'll be really back with Andile Nzabanzaba, Research and Communications Officer at the Ombudsman of Financial Services, I beg your pardon, as well as Manqoba Mabuza, Advocacy and Communications Manager at the Eswatini Competition Commission.
Eswatini TV has signed a code of conduct that is enforced by the Eswatini Communications Commission. We are committed to reporting news that is accurate, comment that is fair, and programming that does not amount to hate speech or the description of gratuitous violence or explicit sex. For any complaints of our programming, please contact us on 2411-9600 or email info@eswatinitv.co.za. You can also contact the Eswatini Communications Commission on 2406-7000 or write a letter to ECCOM on PO Box 7811 Mbabane. Email address is info@ecom.org.za.
Kude lesinye isikhathi ngaphandle kwalesi.
Aba research bafunze.
Being risky means ukuthi nalokuwa kwayo kulula.
Nathi
ngathi kufuna ukukhicita lokusembili.
When you choose your adventures, you do so with an open heart and a desire for the unexpected. You embark on journeys to discover new worlds, full of wonder. You choose a path to awaken your senses, a world to make you look up and realize just how inspiring this life can be. Arrive and awaken your heart. Explore life in ways only thought possible in your dreams. Discover just how far you go to expand your understanding of life's greatest mysteries. There's just one place on this planet with so much to offer. Now is the time for you to have the royal experience.
Will artificial intelligence take your job? The revolutionary technology can increase productivity, boost economic growth, and lift incomes. But it may also threaten employment and widen inequality. The likely effects of AI on the global economy, as well as our lives and livelihoods, are caused of jobs worldwide could be affected by AI. In advanced economies, the share rises to 60%, posing both opportunities and risks. In some scenarios, jobs may evolve, even vanish, as AI takes on tasks traditionally performed by humans. For example, AI-powered chatbots and virtual assistants can already handle many customer service inquiries. The bright side is that AI can also complement worker skills, enhancing productivity and opening up new opportunities. AI-powered algorithms can analyze medical images with precision, assisting doctors in making quicker, more accurate diagnoses. New jobs and even new industries may also arise. In most emerging markets and low-income countries, there is a smaller share of high-skilled jobs than in advanced economies. So they will likely be less affected and will face fewer immediate disruptions from AI. At the same time, many of these countries don't have the infrastructure or skilled workforces needed to harness the benefits of AI. This could worsen inequality among nations. AI could also affect income and wealth inequality within countries. Workers who can harness AI may see pay gains or greater productivity, while those who can't may fall behind. Younger workers may find it easier to exploit opportunities, while older workers could struggle to adapt. In most scenarios, AI will likely worsen overall inequality, a troubling trend that policymakers must prevent. The key question then is, how can we ensure that these rapid gains in AI benefit everyone? To help countries craft the right policies, the IMF has developed an AI Preparedness Index that measures readiness in areas like digital infrastructure, human capital and labor market policies, innovation, and regulation. It shows that wealthier economies like Singapore, the US, and Denmark tend to be better equipped for AI adoption than low-income countries. Advanced economies should expand social safety nets, invest in training workers, and prioritize AI innovation and integration. They also need to strengthen regulation to protect people from excessive risks and abuses and build trust in these technologies. Emerging markets and developing economies should lay a strong foundation.
It's recognized globally. It started in 1983. It's a UN-recognized day. It's celebrated on the 15th of March every year. In Eswatini, we're celebrating it tomorrow, which is the 14th of March, at the Hilton Garden Inn here in Babane, in the presence of a number of stakeholders. Maybe we'll discuss that later.
Yeah.
But coming specifically to campaigns that we embark on around consumer protection issues, you will know that the Eswatini Competition Commission, is charged with the responsibility to, empowered by the Competition Act of 2007. We look on consumer protection issues. We do investigations, enforcement, but also sometimes just mediation between consumers and other players in the market.
Yeah.
So in that regard, what is important is advocacy and promotional activities, raising awareness and embarking on educational campaigns, which is what we usually do. Just right now, we are from the Bukanu ceremony in Tlane, where we're engaging with consumers on the ground, because it's important that they know their rights. It's important that they are aware of what to do, for instance, if they face issues of defective products in the market, or harmful products, or faulty items. What do they do? And it's important that they know that. So we usually go to Tinkundla centers as well, in partnership with our line ministry, the Minister of Commerce, partners like the Ombudsman of Financial Services and others, just to raise awareness and educate stakeholders. But we also have a radio program on a weekly basis on EPIS at 11 a.m. EPIS 2, the English radio channel, from 11 to 12 every Thursday, where we discuss consumer issues and empower the consumer, because it's important that they are aware of their rights.
100%.
Those are some of the campaigns that we embark on.
Yeah, Nondumiso, can you, if you will, give us, a sense of the real impact here? I mean, he's speaking about some of the campaigns that you've done, which are very timely and always important. I mean, you did say earlier that consumers need to understand that they have the right to quality products, whatever product it is. But I do want a sense of a real impact, a real life example where, there was a case or an initiative where consumer advocacy really changed the game.
Okay, as Mangoba just pointed out, we definitely are out there, not only just physically through roadshows and Tinkundla visits and emphasizing the rights of the consumer. We are out there as well, even through social media. And from these platforms, we are seeing the reaction of the public. For instance, we track the number of visits, the traffic that we actually receive based on our consumer rights awareness and training campaigns, and you can see the numbers rising. And we normally have a question that queries how people even became aware of our respective institutions. And you find people stating how they have become aware either through the radio program but they are citing the very campaigns that we have been doing to say they became aware that they could come to our offices and access the service that we give through our own efforts at trying to reach to them.
I want us to dig into the theme for this year's day, a just transition to sustainable lifestyles. For me, the first time I heard it, I was thinking around climate change. I'm like, okay, what does this have to do with consumer rights? Mangoba, what is your understanding of this theme? Are we moving towards sustainability in consumption? Are we moving toward a future where businesses, as well as, sustainability and consumers share responsibility of ethical consumption? What is the case here?
Yeah, we are talking climate issues as well, sustainability issues, because, they have got impact on the consumer. Right now, for instance, you will know that if you look at the theme for this year, a just transition to sustainable lifestyles, you will know that basically talks to what we are doing, around the issue of climate change, insofar as lifestyles are concerned, and what it means to consumers on the ground. Right now, you will know, for instance, there's the policy around plastic in the country, which is, I think, a move towards the right direction. And there are other players like Environmental Authority who are also on board, especially, it's their role. So where we come in is, that it affects the consumer. Whatever happens in the market, insofar as the change or the transition in terms of how, for instance, business players are producing their items. Are they eco-friendly? Are we living in harmony with nature? And what are the implications for the consumer on the ground? And also their responsibilities on the side of the consumer in terms of what is expected of them. But also just to raise the awareness and conscientize them in terms of what it means and for them. Because, I mean, right now, you know, there are items, for instance, that are detrimental to the health of consumers on the ground, you know, based on their not being eco-friendly. So that's where we come in as the consumer protection.
I think you've conscientized them already, you know, with this particular answer. But and I suppose your answer then begs the question, Nondumi, so that especially in Eswatini, where affordability often dictates choice, and I'm a consumer myself, I have seen that most of sustainable products tend to be pricey. You know, they aren't as affordable as what you have regarded as dangerous or sometimes toxic to someone's health or otherwise. How do we approach this? It's often looked at as a privilege, this thing, but how do you mainstream it?
Thank you very much. Viewer at home, things and subjects that touch on sustainability, the cost of it is in your mind more than anything else, because if you talk friendliness, your practice is to be friendly to the environment. You don't need money. The way that you need to take care of objects that will be destructive to the environment, just from your own home and spreading to your neighbors in your village before you talk national. If you practice eco-friendly practices, for instance, I am from the rural areas. I differentiate waste between dry waste and wet waste. Wet waste, each of these have both a possibility of being recycled. So you'd find that you will use your wet waste as compost, for instance, and then you'll avoid those that are in the business of fertilizers, will excuse me here. But then you can always avoid using chemicals to enrich your soil through using waste that comes out just from your kitchen. That is not costly. It's just a question of the mind. And then safely transitioning into your thought and seeing how may you engage in simple, humble practices to ensure sustainability.
I love that answer because it sits at the center of the very work that you are supposed to do as we commemorate this day, which is raising awareness. That is exactly what you've just done, you know, with your 1-minute submission here. But, you know, what are the plans going forward, particularly on the day tomorrow, as well as, you know, going forward, entrenching this particular theme, sustainability? Mangoba.
Thank you so much. And tomorrow, basically, what we are doing, we will be commemorating it tomorrow. I think it's important to emphasize because the actual day globally, it's on the 15th, which is Saturday. But in the country, we are commemorating it tomorrow at the Hilton Garden Inn. We have invited a number of stakeholders in partnership with the OFS. We have invited government, regulators, business, consumer forums, and others, academia. And we are joined even by our partners from outside the country. COMESA Competition Commission will join in virtually in a discussion, in a panel discussion, and also the Competition and Consumer Protection Commission of Zambia. They will also be joining us virtually. And we are excited to announce that we are also live streaming this event tomorrow. So consumers follow on the ground, they can follow.
I'm afraid we have run out of time, but they can follow through that link. But also, I'm sure media houses will be there, including ourselves as Eswatini TV. So they will catch that on our news. Thank you so much for joining us on the program. Mangoba Mabuza, Advocacy and Communications Manager at the Eswatini Competition Commission and the Ombudsman, OFS herself, Mageno Ndumiso Simelane. Let's go for a net break. We'll be back shortly.
Let me ask you something. What if I said we could all be more productive, that we could do more, create more, or earn more, without having to spend more time or effort we put into work? Sounds great, right? So how do we do it? How do we do more with less? For economists, boosting productivity is the trillion-dollar question. So what do I mean by productive? What exactly is productivity? Economists actually measure how many resources go into an economy and compare that to the value of goods and services coming out. And that's what's called total factor productivity. The better and more efficiently an economy uses its time and resources, the higher its productivity. Let me show you what I mean. What if I wanted to open a restaurant? What would I need? A budget, tools, some ingredients? Of course. You can't have a good meal without an experienced chef. Once we have those, my customers get a great dining experience, and my restaurant starts earning revenue. But there's so much more to running a restaurant than just good cooking. I have to spend time ordering ingredients, doing taxes, taking reservations, seating charts, property management, getting permits, renewing safety, managing, updating, hiring and firing. Doing those things takes me time I'd rather spend making meals. Fewer meals means turning away customers and losing out on revenue. My productivity could be so much higher if I use technology to streamline those things. But I can go even further. Here in the kitchen, I can also use technology or hire someone to take over the routine tasks. So now I can focus on making the perfect meal. My kitchen, with all its fancy gadgets to help me out, isn't so different from how wealthy economies use technology, trade, or innovation to boost their productivity. But imagine I don't have these tools. That's a problem that many poorer countries face, and it's one that the IMF takes pretty seriously. Because without access to productivity boosters, they earn less, and so living standards remain low. There's no one solution. But we do know that investing in science, technology, and education does help our members to do more with less over the long term. It's investments in our future that'll make us all better off and give us more time to do the things we love.
Kude lesinye isikhathi ngaphandle kwalesi.
Aba-researche, bafunze.
Being risky means ukuthi nalokuwa kwayo kulula.
Nathi kufuna sente ukukhicita lokusembili.
Nibongosi lenhle sesifike emaphethelweni eluhlelo lwethu lwalomuhla ekseni kunguLesine. Sibonga kakhulu ukuthi nihleli nathi kude kufike lesikhathi nasi lesifike kuso. Sethembele usuku litawuba ngiloluhle nalo libusisekile. Bachumi bethu motolo basaphuma batawukhumbula titsikabeto la khona bathi teti khona labo labasecwayisako. Nibe lesuku leluhle sitawuhlangana kusasa kunguLesihlanu nisale kahle.
Coming up on TPI. I grew up, you know, in the streets. I grew up, you know, doing bad things, smoking weed, selling drugs, fighting, fornicating, you know, doing what I wanted to do. And a friend of mine got shot and killed, and my mom and my sister was trying to revive him. And I felt like the Lord was telling me, this is you and you're sin, you're dead, you're disconnected from me, you don't know me.
Hello, welcome to TPI. I'm your host, Muyiwa Olaiwaju. There's a scripture that's been running through my mind lately. It comes from Psalm 90, verse 12, and it says, "Teach us to number our days, that we may gain a heart of wisdom." Life is a gift, and every day God has given us here on earth is precious. It's good to remind ourselves of this truth from time to time. Now, modern hymn writers Keith and Christine Getty have written timeless songs like In Christ Alone that connect the listener to the reality of God.